Quiet, please. Quiet, please. The Mutual Broadcasting System presents Quiet, Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper and which features Ernest Chappell. Quiet, Please for tonight is called Rain on New Year's Eve. It's raining again. Pretty near New Year's, and it's raining again. Back east, it's probably snowing different places. Or maybe the moon's out, shining on the snow, and people are saying, why, it's so bright out you can read a newspaper. You can't read a newspaper by moonlight, only the headlines. Maybe if you take your newspaper out in the yard and stand in the moonlight, you might find a headline with my name in it. It's been there before. Well, anyway, so there's moonlight. Here, there's rain. Like it was that other New Year's Eve. That's what the rain makes me think of. As if I ever thought of anything else. Listen to the rain. I was sitting in my office in the writer's court out there after we'd been on the picture for 2 or 3 months. Writing it, that is. They'd been shooting for about 3 weeks, but I was still on the picture because we had a producer that couldn't make up his mind, and the director was one of those guys, sort of road company Hitchcock, you know. He makes the picture up as he goes along. Only there has to be a writer filed away someplace where he can find him when he runs out of ideas, which is not more than 11 times a day. So I'm dying. I go on the set and I find actors there I never heard of, speaking lines I never wrote in scenes I couldn't figure out. Then the director would get me in the corner and put the arm on me. This thing doesn't seem to quite gel, old man. You know? And me and my little typewriter go to work to unscrew things while the overtime and the gin rummy games go right on. Great life, that. Well, so I'm sitting in my office and the rain is on the roof and the gas heater is frying my ankles while the draft from the window is giving my neck the deep freeze. Mary Lou, my secretary, comes in from her little cubbyhole next to mine.
When do I get to do my Christmas shopping, Mr. Ramsey?
You don't get to do your Christmas shopping, Mary Lou.
Yes, I know. I didn't.
What?
Christmas was 2 days ago, Mr. Ramsey.
Was it? Well, Merry Christmas.
Are we ever going to finish this picture, for heaven's sake?
Well, I'll tell you, Angel. Mr. Doty, the great director, is getting $3,500 a week.
I know it.
And, my dear, Mr. Doty has not got $3,500 a week for a long, long time, see?
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Doty, the great director, is going to make $3,500 a week just as long as he possibly can, and characters like us can, you know what.
That man.
I have a different word for him, sweetheart. But as I was saying, if we leave it to Mr. Doty, this here picture ain't never going to be finished. 100 years from now, somebody will come upstairs here and they'll find an old man with a long white beard speeding out the 59th revision of scene 456. And in the next room, a little apple-cheeked old lady.
Oh, cut it out.
Yes.
Oh, when are they going to finish it? No kidding.
New Year's Eve.
Well, maybe there'll be champagne and stuff on the set.
Yeah, no doubt. For the expensive actors and the producers and the fine, upstanding director. For you and me, a nice bottle of 60-cent claret imported from right over there on Ventura Boulevard.
You're so funny.
On the contrary.
Well, I'm getting awful sick of this, Mr. Ramsey. We've had to work every single night for the last 4 weeks. Do you realize that?
You kidding? Do I realize? Go get me some coffee, will you, kid? I gotta stay awake for Mr. Doty.
Coffee. I bet you and I could be elected president of Brazil, all the coffee we've put away.
Answer the phone.
It's Doty.
Well, we gotta be dignified.
Oh, Lord. Mr. Ramsey's office. Who's calling, please? Oh, yes, Mr. Doty. He's here.
I'm always here. Ramsey. Yes, Mr. Doty. What seems to be the trouble? I see. Yes, I see, but Mr. Doty, Well, that'd mean rewriting practically all of... Well, yes, I know. I mean... But what do you gain that way? What? 2 monsters? Well, what's 2 monsters got that 1 monster hasn't? Oh, yeah, sure, but who scares who? Whom, I mean. But, Mr. Doty, I saw a picture once with 2 monsters in it, and it was silly. What? Oh, you directed it. I'll be right over. Skip the coffee, Mary Lou.
2 monsters?
2. Count them 2. And I'll lay you 6-2, and even by the time I get to the stage, you'll be hollering for 3.
Take your raincoat. It's raining pitchforks.
Maybe one of them will stab me. I better tell you about this monster stuff. This was a horror picture, you see. Kind of the poor man's Frankenstein. Yeah, they couldn't get Karloff, naturally, and they couldn't use the Frankenstein monster makeup because Jack Pierce over at Universal invented that. I guess Universal owned it. So they had me dream up a monster. And boy, did I dream one up. There's an old book. It's called... No, I guess I won't tell you what it's called. Well, you don't want to take those old books too seriously. So I kind of swiped this monster out of the book. Well, you'll never see the picture, I suppose, so maybe I better tell you a little about him. No, I guess I won't either. He was the most horrible monster I ever saw, no kidding. And what the makeup department did with my sketch and my description. Oh, boy. Just one thing I'll tell you about him, and you can figure out the rest for yourself. He didn't have any face. You take it from there. But don't kid yourself. He was a thing. They got Ollie Tharp to play the goon. Nice fella, quiet, always grinning, modest. Good actor. Last guy in the world you'd expect to play a monster. Oh, yeah, sure. Karloff did the Frankenstein thing, and he's the mildest-mannered guy in the world. I remember him on the Son of Frankenstein set years ago in his monster suit all gray and green, showing pictures of his new baby to people. That's a laugh. Well, I guess monsters are human sometimes, huh? Yeah, maybe humans are... Yeah. Well, all right. I spend 3 hours listening to Mr. Doty run off at the mouth with the whole company having the screaming memes over all this nonsense. It's 5 minutes to 12 when he finally decides to quit and everybody goes home. They're all burned at Doty, but they'll wake up in the morning, remember the overtime, and they'll feel better. Me? Writers don't get overtime. So I get back to the writer's court and the light's burning in the window and Mary Lou's snoring away with her face in a stack of carbon paper. She wakes up and asks me a question.
How many monsters now?
We got 4 now, see, including me. So the next morning it's not raining anymore. The sun is shining bright. And you can see snow on top of the mountains, and it's a very nice day. And monsters are pretty hazy in my mind as I pick up my copy of the Reporter and head for the rickety stairway to my palatial office. I'll tell you how much good the sunshine did me. I was whistling as I climbed up the stairs and opened the door.
You might as well turn off the whistle. Mr. Doty's looking for you.
And now what?
He says it's very important.
2 more monsters.
Your coffee's on your desk.
Steaming cold, no doubt.
I just brought it up. Give me 15 cents.
It's your turn to buy this morning.
I bought yesterday.
All right. Hello? No, he isn't here yet. Go ahead.
Mr. Ramsey's office. Yes, Mr. Doty.
Morning, Mr. Doty. How are you? Oh? No kidding. Why, that's hot. What? Oh, of course. Yeah. Yes, sure.
What's up?
Why, sure, Mr. Doty. Yes, sir, I'll be right over.
What?
He has to finish the picture definitely by 12 midnight, December 31st.
Oh, that's what you said last night.
Well, I was kidding. You know how it goes in the story.
I forgot.
Well, I mean the way it was originally. You know, this monster only has power the last hour of the year.
Oh, yes.
Remember, it was a New Year's party, the whole picture?
It's been so long ago, I forgot how we started.
Well, don't you remember our big payoff scene? She thinks the monster is her wicked uncle?
Who thinks?
You know, the babe with the teeth. The goon girl with a blue dress.
Oh, yes.
Remember, she thinks the monster is her uncle, and she tries to rip his mask off, and it ain't a mask?
Something like
And
that.
the house is on fire, and he grabs her and runs inside the house, and our hero busts in after her and rescues her. Some way I never had a chance to figure out.
So how would he do it without his glasses? He'd fall over the stoop.
What stoop? There's hundreds of them in pictures.
Drink your coffee and go see Mr. Doty. Maybe he's changed his mind.
I can't change his mind. The front office put the big fat arm on him, or else. Whoopee, baby, 3 days and we can sit down and rest.
Away from this place.
You can say that again. Tell him I ain't here. Well, sir, that sunshine looked better than ever to me. But when the big door of the stage swung shut behind me, the sunshine sure disappeared. Well, Mr. Doty was an unhappy man. Well, 3 more days and there wouldn't be any more of those $3,500 is. And he didn't like it a little bit. And guess who he took it out on?
This is the worst story I ever had to work with. It positively smells
I
bad.
didn't say. It's your story, Mr. Doty. All I got left is a monster, and he'll probably turn out to be Santa Claus or somebody.
You listened to me when I told you how to do it.
I didn't say. I listened to you, Mr. Doty, and now look what we got.
Now I have to give up my beautiful idea of having 3 monsters instead of 1.
Because then we'd have had to reshoot practically the whole picture, and you'd have made another $1 million. I didn't say that either.
So, if you think you could possibly dredge up your original script, I think I can possibly make it into an acceptable B picture. Although that's a task even for a director like me.
Mr. Doty doesn't realize what an unconscious humorist he is. That guy could make a B picture out of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, even if he had the original cast.
So get to work. Get to work and do something. Have I got to do everything around here? Get a move on you.
Oh, I got a move on me. Even if you think I disliked that guy up to now. What? He did to me the last 2 days.
You've got to get some sleep somehow. You've been on your feet for almost 2 days, Mr. Ramsey.
Yeah. Where were we?
Scene 168. Long shot interior mansion night. From the top of the stairway, a figure appears indistinct in the shadows. We sense, rather than see, the twisted evil form of the monster as he peers over the balustrade. From the foreground right, the butler appears and starts slowly up the stairway. As he reaches the 4th or 5th step, the camera starts to move in to follow him. We crane up the stairs, and the camera holds on the last 3 steps as the butler reaches the top. Cut to... Hey, wake up.
I'm sorry. Where were we?
Ramsey, you've got to get some sleep. Lie down for 10 minutes.
Gee, I'd sure like that.
Mr. Ramsey's off.
I'm not here.
Yes, Mr. Doty.
All right. All right. Hello? Yes? Sure. I'll be right over.
Oh, Mr. Ramsey, I was...
You know what, Mary Lou?
Oh, put on your coat. It's raining again.
You know what?
What?
I wish I was a monster. You know, I was a tired little fellow. I didn't have any Thanksgiving. I ate a bent ham sandwich in my office that day because Mr. Doty had to have 3 new scenes Friday morning. He called me to the office to see how I was doing. He just finished his Thanksgiving dinner. I didn't have any Christmas. I locked the door of my office and baked my brains out on a whole new sequence Mr. Doty had thought up. All around me, people were drinking whiskey and chasing each other through the corridors and up and down the stairs. I didn't have any Sundays, and I didn't have any evenings. I, my friend, damn near lost my mind. All the time, Mr. Doty. Wow. Heck, no wonder that by New Year's Eve I was ready to hire a man with a cleaver to extirpate the guy. But I didn't. Nope, I sure didn't. At 9 o'clock, he called me over to the set again. Could I rewrite some dialogue? Well, I crossed him up on that one. I threw out the hash he'd made of my original dialogue and substituted what I'd originally written. It played okay. After 7 different takes, all exactly alike. I went back to my office in the rain.
Mr. Ramsey's office. Yes, Mr. Doty. Yes, Mr. Doty. I'll tell him. Mr. Ramsey.
I heard you.
He needs you right away again.
Okay.
Oh, you poor thing.
Only another couple hours. Hope I can take it.
Take your raincoat. It's raining cats and dogs.
You're telling me. That time it was a little piece of action he couldn't get through his ivory head. I explained it in words of one syllable, carefully avoiding the 4-letter ones. He thanked me, old boy, and I went out into the rain again. Rain. What rain in California can do to you. I heard of a fellow that jumped into the Los Angeles River once after a week of rain. Ordinarily, he'd break his ankle, but he drowned. You know, it just comes down steadily. Well, I know I could probably be a lot more graphic than that, but that's all there is to rain in California. It comes down steadily. Ice cold. Steadily. Yeah. Of course, it always stops about the time you've decided to start out on foot for the east. The sun shines and poinsettias bloom and the hills are green. Oh, man, it's wonderful. I guess they have the rain like hitting yourself on the head with a hammer. It feels so good when you stop. Yeah, that's a bum gag, but I was a pretty beat-up character. 3 more times that New Year's Eve. In the rain. The guy getting meaner and meaner each time. Well, at least it was going to be over pretty soon. It was 10 minutes to 11 when I came into the office and Mary Lou took my coat from me.
You've just got to get a little sleep, Ramsey. Now, you sit down at your desk and put your head down and catch 40 winks.
Thanks, Mary Lou. Oh, if I had to see that man just one more time tonight, I would be responsible. I'm not kidding.
I know. You go to sleep.
Well, kid, you're as all in as I am.
Well, at least I don't have to face him.
He's got to stop at midnight. As soon as he's through, should you and me go someplace and have a New Year's drink?
I don't know whether I could keep awake.
Well, let's try, huh?
Okay.
Anybody ever tell you you're a nice gal?
Couple of people.
I could marry a gal like you.
Don't kid people, Ramsey.
I'm not.
See how you feel when you wake up.
I think I love you.
I wish you meant that, Ramsey.
I do. Kiss a fellow good night.
Ramsey, you're sweet.
Kiss me good night. Oh. I'm sorry.
Go to sleep.
So I went to sleep. And I dreamed. Even when I was asleep, I couldn't get that guy Doty off my mind. I dreamed I was on the set. I dreamed they were shooting the last scene, the one where the monster comes closer and closer to the camera till that head of his without any face fills the whole screen. You know how it is in dreams. You're here. Now all of a sudden you're there, and you're one guy, and then you're another, and it's all mixed up. Yeah. I could see the set, and I could hear Doty call out.
What? Roland. Action!
Then I could see this faceless monster coming out of the shadows. Slowly, right up to the camera where George Robinson was standing, as tired as everybody else. And I thought to myself, if the audience had any idea that little old milquetoast Ollie Tharp was inside that monster rig, they'd bust. And in the dream, I saw Dodie jumping up and down in one of those silly rages of his, and he yelled,
Cut! Get back there and fight over. You've got about as much minute as Ramsey over there.
even in my dreams, he was picking on me. And so they started all over again. My dream got kind of mixed up all right there, and I sort of seemed to be following the monster, because I could see Dodie's face right in front of me as the monster moved in. When Dodie yelled, cut again, the monster and I didn't stop. I just sort of seemed to follow him right on, farther and farther. I saw the monster's big, hairy hands grab Dodie, and Dodie screamed, and the monster's hands were fumbling at Dodie's neck. Dodie was fighting, and I saw Dodie bite the monster's hand. It was so real I could almost feel it. And then everything got black in my dream, and there were a lot of bells ringing, and that's what woke me up. So I raised my head, and of course, there I was in my office. And I pulled myself out of it a little, and well, I knew what the bells were. They were bells ringing in the new year. The rain was hammering on the roof, and it was tomorrow. So I got up and hollered for Mary Lou. Mary Lou! Hey, Happy New Year, Mary Lou. And she didn't answer. I stepped through the door into her little office. And she was lying on the floor behind her desk. And the look on her face was something I never want to see again. It was a look of the most awful horror anybody could imagine. The kind of look you'd expect to see on the face of someone who'd been literally frightened to death by a monster who had no face at all. So I stood there. After a few seconds, I heard people yelling outside, and I heard somebody yell that Ollie Tharp had killed Dodie. Somebody else said, no, Ollie Tharp was dead, too, with a broken neck in his dressing room. And my hand hurt. When I raised my hand to look at it, right across the thick of my palm were teeth marks. Deep, bloody teeth marks where Dodie had bit me when I strangled him. So you see, that's why I say never take any of those old books too seriously. Remember I said I wished I was a monster? Remember what the book said? The monster only possessed his murderous power for 1 hour, the last hour of the year. New Year's Eve again, and it's raining. Got anybody you want murdered?
You have listened to Quiet, Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper. The man who spoke to you was Ernest Chappell.
And Muriel Kirkland was Mary Lou. Pat O'Malley was Dodie. Music for Quiet, Please is composed and played by Albert Berman. Now, for a word about next week's Quiet, Please, here's our writer-director, my good friend, Willis Cooper.
I have a story for you next week about a man who was haunted. It's called The Little Visitor.
And so, until next week at this time, I am quietly yours, Ernest Chappell.
Quiet, Please comes to you from New York. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
Mutual Broadcasting System presents Quiet Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper and which features Ernest Chappell. Quiet Please for tonight is called Little Visitor.
All I know is there was a train wreck. I don't even remember the train wreck, but they told me about that afterward in the hospital. 20 years ago seems a long time when you just say it. But after all, it was only 1928, wasn't it? The year after Lindbergh flew the Atlantic, remember? I don't remember it, of course. I don't remember anything before the train wreck. Amnesia, they call it. Just like they have on the radio in the soap operas, only when it happens to you, it's very rough not having any childhood to remember. You just think about that for a minute. Think how dull your life would be if you hadn't any school days to remember, if you didn't have any memories of your kid friends. Oh, I've heard you talk about them, comparing notes with other people, laughing, sometimes being very sad when you think of somebody you knew in the 8th grade, and maybe he died in Guadalcanal or someplace. Maybe some of my kid friends did, too. When you get to talking about your childhood memories, and all I can remember back to was the hospital with my head hurting and a lot of people asking me questions that made it hurt worse. So I walk away, and sometimes I cry a little. Grown man crying. Grown man. I don't even know how old I am. I don't know who I am. Really, though, I'm not full of self-pity all the time. I try to take it in my stride. But a thing like this leaves scars. Worse than the one on the back of my head. The name I use is Smith. The doctors at the hospital gave me that name. They gave me my first name, too, which I don't especially like. But the fellow who suggested it was friendly and good to me. So I go through life carrying Ulysses for a first name. Well, the doctor was a sentimental buzzard or something, and he was thinking about the old Greek Ulysses who had to wander so far before he finally found his home. Well, I'd wander too, he said, and maybe it'd be a lucky name because old Ulysses finally got home. Maybe I'd get home someday, too. So, I'm Ulysses. And I haven't found home yet. I've made a home, of course. Marjorie and I were married 2 years ago, and it's all right. But I'd like to find my real home sometime. And remember, I'm a locksmith by trade. They taught me at the hospital. I'm not a very good one, just a journeyman. Of course, you don't really have to be such a high-powered expert like Courtney that died the other day was to get by in this trade. Most of the work you're called on for is simple, making a key, unlocking somebody's luggage, things like that. When a job's too tough for me, there are other locksmiths in town. Well, I get by. Then there's a lot of time to think and try to remember. I keep thinking about kids. The ones I must have played with when I was a kid. And this time of the year, I get to thinking about coasting on a hill somewhere. And I do my best to remember a hill and remember who was with me, but it's always the same. I can't remember. Last Thursday night, I was working in the shop on a late job. A fellow left a little safe with me. He'd lost the combination. He wasn't sure what was inside it, and he was going away and wanted to get it open. So I put in a little overtime. The fellow said he didn't mind paying for it. So I was all alone. It was close to 12, and I was pretty tired. A long day. I thought I heard somebody at the door. I looked around. There wasn't anybody. I looked at the clock then and saw what time it was, and the safe had turned stubborn on me, so I decided to call it a day. I knew Marjorie would be having fits anyway at me being at the shop so late. I was just slipping into my coat when the door opened. Yeah, sure it was locked. But it opened. And there was a kid standing in the doorway, grinning at me.
Hi.
How'd you get that door open, son?
Just opened.
Oh, I locked it.
It opened. What you doing?
Well, what are you doing this time of night?
Nothing.
Hadn't you better be home?
Nah.
Your mother will be looking for you.
Haven't got any mother.
And your father.
Haven't got any father either.
You get along home.
What you doing?
I was trying to open the safe. Scram now.
Is it full of money?
I don't know what's in it. Go on, beat it, son. I'm going to turn out the lights and close up.
All right.
Want me to walk down the corner someplace with you?
Which way you going?
That way.
Nah, I don't go that way.
Well, you get along home.
Okay. So long.
Well, I was naturally a little concerned about a kid of that age. He looked to be about 8, running around the streets at midnight. So I snapped the lights off quickly and stepped out the door to catch up with him. When I got outside, there wasn't a sign of him. Well, I got to worrying, but what could I do? So I walked down home, and just like I thought, Marjorie was sore.
I don't see why you can't get some kind of work that doesn't keep you up all night. Here you come in, night after night, at all hours.
Well, this is the first night I've worked since the week after Thanksgiving, hon.
Well, I don't see why you have to work nights at all.
Well, I don't like it either, dear, but a man's got to make a living.
Yeah, and a fine living it is, too, isn't it?
It's the best I can do, dear.
Next thing you know, you'll be asking me to go back to work again.
Now, Marjorie, you know better than that.
Well, I don't see any other way of getting any decent clothes.
I'm sorry, dear.
So sorry.
You go on to bed, dear. Did you leave me anything to eat?
I went to the restaurant.
Oh, that's fine, dear. Did you have a good supper?
If you think I'm going to stand around and cook and slave for you all day long and then half the night on top of that, well, you've got another thing coming.
Of course, dear. You know, the funniest thing happened tonight.
Yeah, for instance.
Well, I was just getting ready to come home, and a little boy opened the door.
Sure, it wasn't a little girl about 18.
It was a little boy.
Oh.
About 8 years old.
Well, what did he want?
Nothing. He just stood there a minute.
Oh, you'd think people could keep their brats off the streets.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You know, he was the strangest kid, Marge.
How?
Well, I'm not sure.
Well, make up your mind.
Well, the clothes he wore, they were, kind of old-fashioned.
Oh, how would you know?
That's right, Marjorie. I wouldn't know. I don't ever remember seeing any old-fashioned clothes. But I've seen pictures of them, I guess, or something. Anyway, he didn't look like other kids.
Oh, you and your kids. That's all you think about.
I wish we had a kid.
Well, I'm glad we haven't. One big lummox around here is plenty. There's a can of salmon in the cupboard. I'm going to bed.
I don't like salmon very well, but don't get me wrong. I love Marjorie. I know it's tough on her being married to a guy that just barely gets by at his trade. And I make allowances. Only I wish she'd be sweet just once in a while. Like she used to be when we were first married. I couldn't get that kid off my mind. I went to sleep and dreamed about him. I guess it was the salmon. I dreamed about him getting run over by a streetcar or falling in that ditch they're digging down to the powerhouse. Sound like an old woman, don't I? But, well, you see, when you got the thing wrong with you that I have, that blackout, you see. Anyway, I remember how the dream ended. Well, I saw the kid standing in front of me in those funny old-fashioned clothes, and he spoke to me.
Don't you worry about me, Ulysses. I'll be seeing you.
And I woke up with a start. And I could have sworn that boy was standing alongside the bed in the half-dark. But when I turned on the light, there was nobody there. Marjorie says, for Pete's sake, if I can't sleep, at least let her sleep. That was on a Thursday. I got to thinking the next morning about the boy. The way he seemed so real in my dream. But he didn't show up. I guess I wasn't very surprised at that. The safe turned out to be a much tougher job than I expected, and I couldn't pry it open. I worked till about 10, and I know now why I did. I was expecting the kid to pop in. The ideas a fella gets. I stay away from talking to kids, you see, because I don't know how to talk to them. I can't talk their language. I don't know it. But this little devil, there was something about him that made me feel we could sort of brother talk to each other. Something familiar about him, if you see what I mean. I kind of felt that I really knew him. Well, he didn't show up. Saturday, I worked all day. No luck with the safe. The man was getting pretty impatient because he was leaving town the following Tuesday. He wanted to see what was in it. You know, in this business, you run into people like that. A closed door or a locked strongbox, they got more curiosity than that cat. Well, he said keep on, so I did. And I figured even if Marjorie didn't like my being away at the shop all the time, she'd feel better when she saw the overtime money the job was going to pay. So I worked Sunday. I don't know how he got in. Maybe I did leave the door unlocked. But there he was, grinning at me.
Haven't you got it open yet?
What are you doing here?
Can I watch it?
Well, you sure you ought to be here?
Sure.
What's your name?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey what?
Jeffrey Briggs.
My name's Ulysses.
Ain't either.
Sure it is.
You made that up.
Oh, it's my name.
Okay. But I bet it ain't.
Well, it is.
All right. Haven't you got that thing open yet?
Yeah, it's a harder job than I thought.
I used to open boxes and things.
You did?
You bet. I opened one once that had a lot of money in it.
Good.
$2.
What'd you do with the $2?
I spent it.
What kind of box was this, Jeffrey?
It was green. Kind of tin. It was my grandfather's.
And he had you open it for him?
Oh, no. He didn't know it.
Oh, I see.
And he didn't know the $2 was in it.
Well, don't you think it was bad to take your grandfather's money?
Why? He didn't know it was there.
Mm-hmm. Well...
You know how I opened the box?
How?
I hid it.
Well, you can't open a safe that way, Jeffrey.
I bet you can.
Oh, you can.
I bet you.
I'll show you.
You see? You see? Ooh, look what's inside. It's money. It's money. It's $1 million. Hey, does the man know the money's in there?
I know, son. He doesn't.
Oh, goody, goody. Then you can keep it, can't you?
The boy's eager eyes followed every move I made when I counted his money. There was $53,000. There was an old notebook and a half a dozen letters. That was all. I guess I sat there quite a while, holding the thick pile of bills and thinking. And Jeffrey's eyes never left my face. He didn't say a word. But he didn't need to. I'd heard him once.
You can keep it, can't you?
And then the telephone rang. Hello? Oh, hello, Mr. Murphy. Yes, I just got it open. Yes, you can come over and pick it up whenever you want to. What? No. No, there wasn't anything in it except an old notebook and some letters. No, not a thing. And then I put down the phone, and I turned back to Jeffrey. Jeffrey wasn't there. But from somewhere, not far away, I heard him laughing. Fit to kill. I was surprised how easy it was. Mr. Murphy never questioned me. He paid me, and I took my pay home and gave it to Marjorie, and she bought a new dress. She even kissed me. But the $53,000, that I put in my bottom bureau drawer under my shirts. I don't know what I intended to do with it. Maybe I was going to give it to Murphy. Maybe not. I don't know. Really, I don't. I know what I did, of course. You've come to that. a matter of fact, what I thought about most was Jeffrey. An innocent kid. And he'd led me into this. He didn't see anything wrong about it. What kind of man is he going to grow up to be? Oh, yes, I dreamed. I dreamed lots of things, but mostly about a small boy in old-fashioned clothes who taught me how to be a thief. Jeffrey didn't come to the shop again. And it was the following Wednesday, last Wednesday, that I discovered the money was gone. I thought at once of the boy. If he could get into my shop, why couldn't he get into the house? He'd stolen $2. What I'd taken was just more money to him. But I discovered what had become of the money. At breakfast.
I think you ought to have some new shirts, Ulysses.
And my heart nearly stopped. That was all she said. That was all, but it was enough. I don't think my face gave me away. Or maybe it did, because she said one more thing just as I was leaving.
Is there a reward for stolen money, Ulysses?
So it was Marjorie, of course. And I knew what would happen. Whatever Marjorie's fault, she was honest, straight-laced, fiercely honest. She wouldn't hesitate a moment to turn me in if she thought I'd stolen. Well, I had stolen. I'd thought about giving the money back to Murphy, as I told you, but now it was too late. If I confessed to Marjorie and asked her for the money to give it back, well, in Marjorie's mind, the crime had been committed. She'd see that I was punished for it. The only thing that prevented her now was the fact that she didn't know where it had come from. If she found out, when she found out, there was no way out. And head down, thinking furiously, I was unaware for a moment of the 8-year-old skipping gaily by my side.
Hey, where are you going?
What? Why, hello, Jeffrey.
Hi.
Where'd you come from?
I was just walking along. You going to your shop?
I guess so.
You know where I'm going?
Where?
I'm going coasting.
Jeffrey, listen.
What?
Jeffrey, you know, the money.
You still got it?
No.
Who's got it?
I think my wife has.
Yeah, that's bad, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I wouldn't let anybody take my money.
I didn't want her to take this money.
Well, I'm going coasting. So long.
Wait a minute, Jeffrey.
I can't wait. The kids are waiting for me up on Normal Hill.
Where?
On Normal Hill. Hey, did she really take it?
I'm afraid she did.
Well, why don't you stab her?
What?
I stabbed an Indian once. Made him dead.
An Indian?
Oh, it was only my sister's doll. But I played it was an Indian. I stabbed it. Stab, stab, stab. Well, so long.
Jeffrey.
Here, you take my pocket knife.
Well, what for?
In case you want to stab her. You'll make her dead. Goodbye.
Jeffrey, wait.
I'll see you up on Normal Hill, huh?
I keep wishing Marjorie hadn't come to the shop that afternoon. I wish she hadn't seen the safe lying there on the workbench where Murphy had left it because it was useless. I wish she hadn't accused me point blank of stealing that money. Because maybe I wouldn't have stabbed her and made her dead. But I did, and I left her there in the locked shop with Jeffrey's pocket knife alongside her. And I went home and I turned the house upside down looking for the money. But I couldn't find it. I didn't have very much of my own, but I bought a ticket and I got on a train. And finally I got off. I didn't know what to do. I had breakfast and I started to walk around the town of Kalamazoo, Michigan. I don't know why I got off the train there, you see. I just got off. I walked down Portage Street and that name seemed so familiar. I saw a man crossing a street and I said to myself, that man's name is Harry Oswald. How did I know that? I walked along a lot of streets, and then I was on a street called Davis Street, and kids were coasting down a big high hill on the other side of the street, and I felt funny all of a sudden. I called to one of the kids, and I said, hey, kid, what's the name of that hill? And the kid came closer, and it was Jeffrey. And he said,
Hi, mister. You came home, huh?
And I said again, "What's the name of that hill?"
Well, that's Normal Hill, mister, where I said I'd meet you. Don't you remember?
And I turned away, and suddenly everything was familiar to me. I knew where I was. I remembered Normal Hill, and the West Street Hill where we used to go sometimes, and riding a bobsled hitched onto Bert McElroy's old reel. And I turned and walked up the steps of a house there on Davis Street, and I opened the door and I said, "Hello, Aunt Nellie." And Aunt Nellie jumped up and spilled her crocheting on the floor, and she said just what I knew she was going to say.
Why, Jeffrey Briggs, you haven't changed a particle.
And then she fainted. Well, it took a lot of explanation how I'd lost my memory and all that. And she told me about...
The time you broke open your grandfather's strong box.
And about the other time.
When you stabbed your sister's doll and came and told us you'd made her dead.
And we had a nice visit together. And then I came away. Yes, I'm going back and give myself up. What else can I do? Aunt Nellie had never known that Ulysses Smith was once... I said I'd wondered what kind of a man little Jeffrey would grow up to be. Well, you know now. He grew up to be a thief and a murderer. I guess I'm the only man in the world that was haunted by himself.
You have listened to Quiet, Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper. Ulysses, the man who talked to you, was Ernest Chappell.
And Michael Artist was young Jeffrey. Audrey Christie was Marjorie. And Aunt Nellie was played by Charma Allen. The accompanying music for Quiet, Please is composed and played by Albert Berman. And now for a word about next week's Quiet, Please, here is our writer-director, Willis Cooper.
Next week, I have a story for you called The Room Where the Ghosts Lived. That is, if ghosts do live. Maybe we'll find out next week.
And so, until next week at this time, I am quietly yours, Ernest Chappell.
Quiet, Please comes to you from New York. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System. Stay with us for And Now with John Gambling, which follows station identification. Leading personalities of the Republican Party will hold a national radio rally over WOR at 11:30 tonight. Republican plans for 1948 will be discussed by Senator Robert A. Taft, Speaker of the House Joseph Martin, Jr., and many others. Hear the National Republican Radio Rally tonight at 11:30. WOR, New York.